Hey folks, Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a round 5 summary, Operation SF, meaning San Francisco. Things are starting to maybe turn a little bit for the Axis and in favor of the Allies. Japan probably made a tactical mistake. They did not send any transports across the Pacific Ocean last turn to reinforce their holdings in San Francisco and British Columbia. And yeah, this is what happened. This was the end result. The British and the Canadians came blitzing across from Alberta to the Pacific Northwest and occupy now Western United States. And the Americans came in and took back Southwest United States, and they air blitzed the lone remaining ground unit in San Francisco, and they did not suffer a casualty. So currently, unless the Japanese want to sacrifice their air force, the Americans will be liberating San Francisco next turn. And I had an interesting discussion with CB's Bill today, and if I was to have done this playtest over, just given the fact that the convoy zones are worth 15 IPP, America's denied a 25 NO bonus, and just San Francisco by itself is worth 8 IPP. That's a 41 IPP total. So the Japanese, it's a 41 IPP swing. So this is a very successful strategy, at least early gameplay, if the Japanese are distracting the Americans so that the Germans can go do what they want to do and capture Moscow. And that's sort of what's happened in this game. But the Japanese might have had a little bit more success, or might have been able to hold on to San Francisco for another turn had some of these transports, instead of reinforcing Asia, which the Japanese now are regaining the upper hand in Asia. The KMT is backing away from the coast, and that is because the Japanese just have too many infantry now along the coast, and wherever they were going to be, whether it was Hong Kong or Guangdong or any of these territories here, the Japanese would have been able to wipe them out next turn. So it was better for them to back up and play defense, as the Japanese also push into Yunnan. So the CCP only has actually 3 territories left. They still have this one here in Shenxi and Chahar and Pilang. I think that's the correct way to say it. Actually, it's probably not the correct way. But the Japanese are also now, they've lost naval superiority here, at least in the South Pacific. The British and the Australians and the Royal Dutch Navy is quite strong, and they're sitting at a naval base here. And the Japanese are outnumbered quite heavily by about 4 or 5 units, so they're probably going to retreat out of the Carolines next turn. And the Anzacs and the British continue to build in Sydney, so more navy over there. The FEC now starting to build a little bit of a navy with the British. They built a cruiser and a destroyer, so at least now, unless Japan, depending on what they're going to do with their navy over here, they're going to have to maybe start bringing it back into the Pacific, maybe to Hawaii next turn, and try and regain some of the naval superiority. But currently over here, in regards to victory cities, the Japanese have 10 victory cities. They're probably going to lose San Francisco next turn, but they're probably going to capture Moscow. And then these are the ones that are in play: Cairo, Hong Kong, Singapore, London, Calcutta, and Manila. And these are the victory cities that are probably off the table for the game, which is Washington, Sydney, and Ottawa. So still lots of game to play out. Over here, the British now have built some military bases in the Middle East and are continuing to produce units there as they are now heading into Russia. Moscow is definitely going to fall next turn. The Germans are sitting in Orly Kursk, which is one space away, and if they send everything that can reach, they have about 85 units, including their aircraft, and the Russians are only defending with about 65 units. So That is a recipe for disaster. The Russians have decided to stay and defend because last game I retreated, and we'll just see what happens. If Moscow is captured by the Germans, the capital for the Russians does move to Novosibirsk, so they will eventually be able to produce ground units here. So the Germans, or at least the Russians, are trying to take as many of the German units as possible. Still a battle of naval attrition here in the Med. Both nations are building boats in the Med. It's very expensive. The Germans flew another unit over here to Tobruk. And the Germans are building medium bombers here at their factory in Romania. They will be in range of Moscow next turn. And over here in the Pacific, or sorry, the South Atlantic, I guess, I don't even know what you call this naval. Anyways, the Americans have taken over all of Brazil and Liberia, and they are building some more fast movers here and ground units to head over to the Pacific side of North America. And this is what's in tow waiting, 3 armor there, and artillery, 2 artillery and 2 mechs, so the artillery can be towed, and these infantry can be railed next turn. And the Americans are starting to build a little bit of Navy. They built 2 destroyers and 2 submarines. Now, I have to make a decision here, folks. Let me know what you would do as the American player. Once you kick the Japanese off the North American continent, would you go more Atlantic and put some pressure over here on Western Europe? Or would you just say, Japan, you're going to pay the price for coming, and go Pacific? So haven't fully decided yet, although I'm leaning a little bit towards the Pacific, given the fact that the Japanese have still not taken over the Philippines, Hong Kong, or Singapore yet, although you look at all these transports there and all the infantry. So it will not be long before the Japanese start heading to the South Pacific, but they're going to have to be careful because they do not want to lose their transports. So yeah, round 6 should be interesting, and stay tuned and see what happens. Thanks for watching, folks.